Hello and welcome to Patriot Pets. My name is Lake Green and I'm excited to be back here today for yet another episode as part of our 1776 campaign lecture series where we examine the most pivotal time, in my opinion, in all of American history. As I've often stated, the campaign doesn't end in victory for America in the most unlikely fashion. The cause of American independence and the Revolutionary War is likely lost right then and there, and we don't have the country that we know of today. Before we get into the top of today's video, I'm going to once again remind you all I can only talk so much in a 10-15 minute lecture on the topics. So please, if you want more information, get David McCullough's book titled 1776. It's phenomenal work. Can't go wrong with it. It's easy to read, engaging, palatable. Please get it. Alright, so for the discussion topic of today's video, we're going to talk about the little-known Battle of Ironworks Hill, which occurred between December 22nd and 23rd, 1776, just days before the famous Battle of Trenton, where Washington would cross the Delaware. So in our last video, we discussed the fact that the Americans had a long, harrowing retreat through New Jersey into Pennsylvania. The army was decimated by this point, and Washington was only able to ferry across some 3,000 men under his own personal command on December 8th, crossing the Delaware from around Trenton, New Jersey. Lord William Howe, the British commander, was so confident that the war was going to end quickly, he was actually willing to just move back to New York City with most of his army, camp there, be isolated from New Jersey, and then leave only small little pockets of British and Hessian soldiers at outposts throughout the western part of the state to guard against American incursions. Howe had 3 outposts here. The first was north in Princeton, the most north of the bottom 2. Then you had Trenton, and then you had Bordentown. So in these 3 outposts, at Bordentown and Trenton, there were 2 contingents of Hessian soldiers. One under the command of Colonel Johann Rall at Trenton, and the other one that was supposed to be at Bordentown under the command of Colonel Karl Von Donop. In Princeton, it was a various assortment of British soldiers, but among them were men of the 42nd Highlanders Regiment of Foot. These men were Scottish, wearing their kilts. We talked about them at the Battle of Harlem Heights. Washington was now in camp with some 2,400 men in Pennsylvania along the side of the Delaware River. He gets reinforcements from a couple thousand more men. Men under the command of General Horatio Gates arrive in support, marching south. And the men that had once served under General Charles Lee was captured on December 12th at Basking Ridge, arrive in camp shortly after that, led by General John Sullivan. So Washington, with these 2 groups of Continental regulars, now arrived and consolidated with this force, and then receiving another 1,000 militiamen from Pennsylvania under the command of John Cadwalader, has a force of some 6,000 men. At the same time, a group of 600 militiamen, mostly, under the command of Samuel Griffin, actually sailed back across the Delaware from the Pennsylvania side and marched towards Mount Holly, New Jersey. Now, Samuel Griffin is a Virginian, and he organizes some Virginia Continental regulars, artillerymen, as well as Pennsylvania Continental regulars. They're a very small force, maybe couple hundred men among them total, to start making incursions against the British in New Jersey. At the same time as he marched through New Jersey, he finds that hundreds of local farmers flock to join him. So now he gets support from really mostly hundreds of New Jersey citizens, militia, men from the state. These men come from Salem, Cumberland, Gloucester, Burlington, Monmouth counties, mostly the southern part of the state, and join up. And eventually he has a force of some 500 to 600 men, estimated. And what happens is Griffin starts making incursions against these outposts. On December 21st, he leads his 600 men against the 42nd Highlanders near Princeton, overwhelms an outpost and a depot near there, harasses the troops, quickly forces the enemy to retreat, and takes possession of a strategic point over a river called the Petticoat Bridge. That's December 21st. Hearing of this, Washington sends his aide, Colonel Joseph Reed, across into New Jersey to meet with Griffin. And at that point, on late December 21st to December 22nd, Reed arrives and talks to Griffin. Griffin, by this time, is actually sick. He's ill. And remember, these are militiamen. Even though he has some Continental regulars, nobody's in good shape. They're all kind of ragged in terms of clothes. They're all using pretty much their own weapons, especially New Jersey militia. They're probably all carrying either shotguns or farm rifles. Probably low on ammunition. They're not really an organized fighting force. They're just regular civilians. But Reed, at the same time, asked Griffin to organize some sort of incursion in the following days, because he actually tells him that Washington at this point is planning on crossing the Delaware and attacking Trenton. Griffin, although he's sick and his men are in poor condition, agrees to some sort of incursion. Little does he know, his plan is going to work way better than he could have ever thought. Because on December 23rd, Von Donop attacks him with 3,000 British and Hessian soldiers. With these 3,000 soldiers, mostly Hessian grenadiers, riflemen, and some British soldiers as well, Von Donop is able to chase the 600 New Jersey and Continental militiamen over and off the Petticoat Bridge and move them south. Griffin actually is purposely retreating. He's not looking to engage in a pitched battle in an open field against a force that is double, triple his size, even more. He actually just wants the Hessians to continue following him in pursuit. And so these 3,000 Hessian and British soldiers march south, following Griffin's men all the way from Petticoat Bridge towards modern-day Mount Holly. In the village of Mount Holly, Griffin's men make a brief stand and then retreat further south. Outside of Mount Holly, in the outskirts of town, they had fortified a hill. They'd, put up some crude earthworks and some, natural defensive barriers. And they retreat back to this position here. Pretty much, Von Donop gets his artillery and they start firing back, exchanging fire at the Americans, and then it's just a pitched long-range battle. That's where the name Battle of Ironworks Hill gets its origin from, because the hill was near an iron foundry at the time. Pretty much no major casualties or action occur after that. Really, there's no major casualties, period. Casualty figures will be on your screen as I continue to talk. And pretty much, this battle is a success, not really because of the casualties or the damage inflicted, but the several thousand Hessians that are pursued that pursue Samuel Griffin and his men under the command of Karl Von Donop are now out of the picture. They can't go back to Bordentown, and they remain at Mount Holly for another 2 days. They remain through Christmas in Mount Holly, and basically, these 3,000 men are nowhere near the action at Trenton that occurs on December 26th in the early morning hours. Therefore, they're unable to help Rahl and his contingent of 1,500 Hessians, and these 3,000 men are way isolated and cut off from their comrades and can play no role in leaving or alleviating the burden that they face at Trenton, or relieving them when they're attacked by the Americans. So Griffin, whether he intended it or not, and his 600 militiamen take 3,000 Hessian soldiers out of the picture, and in the following days, Washington will win a miraculous victory, the Battle of Trenton. Thank you so much for watching. Rate, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time on Patriot Pass. I'm Lake Green.